Let's first see whether there are any tags. Okay, there are some tags. Just as a first indication of whether the right thing happened is, you have to make sure it does highlight the content so you see what's going on. We go to the first H1, the heading 1, and it's actually highlighting the PDF UA. Right. So what I was getting when I was losing my precious lifetime, it was highlighting the correct PDF UA because it was top left. So it seems that it works in principle. Let's look at the metadata. So we have the metadata here, the stuff that I was entering. One other thing that's important is this one here. So we also set this automatically. So we should use the document title for display in the document window, not the file name. It's also a requirement from PDF UA. The language has to be set. That's also something InDesign is not doing. And actually it's the wrong language in this case, but it doesn't matter because the rest of the text is tagged again as English.
Language is taken from your heritage.
InDesign does not set this. So from in InDesign you get this.
Okay.
But you have, it's only partially broken from InDesign. So if you go inside the document, it's going to have somewhere, I always have to, if you look at the properties of all these tags, it also gives you a language indication. And you see it's German here. That's why it's also German in the document level, because the post-processing picks up the language from the highest node in the structure tree. But if you go down, actually it's all German. So we still have a problem. I did not check this before. So I think that all the paragraph styles are still set up to German. No, this one is not. So let me see. English. English. Why is this English? Let's see. Okay. The problem is there's several ways how you can put the language inside the document. And you can actually put it on the content level or on the tag level. So on the content level it's set to English. So in the end all the content has the right English tags. But for some reason I would have to find out why. On some other level it's still German because this started as a German document and was translated to an English document. Is showing up as German on top level.
And this information is of course important if you have a text to speech.
Yeah. So it's very funny to read the German text with a French voice. Very funny, but only for 2 or 3 minutes. And then
it depends if you want to laugh or if you want to understand what's there.
So you should have an eye on that. Actually, the next version of MadeToTag, which will come out in the second quarter, will have a feature that supports you in doing the language setting and checking. We will have a similar mechanism as for the export tags with the color highlighting. There will be a panel with language setting, and you will have color highlighting for the languages in document, and also indication of the language that are languages that are used, and keyboard shortcuts to just change the language. The same way you assign the export tags, and then it should become much easier. In terms of the content and whether it's actually good, there's a nice piece of software called Colors PDF Go HTML. So it's a free of charge plugin for Adobe Acrobat, Mac and Windows, Acrobat 8, 9, 10, 11. I hope that we soon will also have a version for Adobe Reader, so people who don't have a commercial version of Acrobat can still use it. But we still have to set up the arrangement with Adobe because you have to get a license from Adobe to be able to publish a Reader plugin. I think we will get it, but it's still being worked on. And we're also going to do a command line version for Linux, because a lot of blind users are using Linux and they prefer command line tools over user interface tools. Because once you
don't care about user interface.
they care about user interface, but not about visual user interface.
Yeah.
And for them, once they understand the command line options, it's easier for them. and they would like to convert tag PDF to HTML and then use links or some other HTML viewing tool to look at the HTML. So it installs here under the Tools section, and you can put it on the Quick Tools toolbar by the context menu, and then you get this button here. And the button is blue if it's a tag PDF, and the button is orange if it's not a tag PDF. And if it's a tag PDF, you can click here, and you get something in HTML. And if you look at one of the views, like this one here, it's the same, more or less the same view that we're using in MadeToTag. So it's a quick way to double check whether the content makes sense. Reading order is good, the tagging is good, alternate text provided for images, and so on. This is more an educational mechanism. It has some views that would be used by disabled people. So it does have a low vision view. So the text is larger. Headings are in color. Normal text is in black and white. This is actually going back to cascading style sheets that a person with low vision is using, and who was annoyed of browsers, and he developed a CSS generator. So you can generate cascading style sheets. You can say, I like this color combination, I like this size of font, and I like whatever, this something else. You make a few choices, and on his website it generates a CSS file. You can download the CSS file and use it. And I have permission from him to use some of his styling here. And so, and it's low vision people have very different needs. So one person wants white background and dark information, but other people find it tiring because it's too much light. Yeah, they would rather want to have it the other way around. It's very reduced brightness, and some people see yellow text better than white text or other colors. So it's really different from person to person. And using cascading style sheets, it's very easy to adjust that. And just because that's also an important disability, especially with young people, is dyslexia, the disability to read well, the written text on the page. And life is easier for them if you do a few things, like you use a special font. I can make it a little bit larger here, where the characters are more different between each other. So for normal document production, it would not be a very nice font. So I find it more disturbing to read this. For my eyes, it's more difficult. But for people with dyslexia, it's supposedly easier. At least that's the result of a research project that was done in the Netherlands between 2006 and 2008. And the result of that is fonts like this. So they kind of they have a downward tendency, and they make the baseline stronger because they are more bold on the bottom than at the top. And also the shapes are more different between each other. And also the character spacing is wider, and as a consequence you have to make wider word spacing and wider line spacing and wider paragraph spacing. And then if you do it like this, it's somehow a little bit easier for these people to read the text. So it's especially important for young people learning, because they need support to overcome at least some of the dyslexia, to learn reading anyway. It might even be difficult when they are growing older, but they can learn it. Yeah, so that's a free of charge and a very good mechanism to double check again in PDF whether you have the right thing going on. There's a tool to check. It's called PDF Accessibility Checker. Have you heard about? Who has heard about PDF Accessibility Checker? So unfortunately, it more or less just runs on Windows. But it's a very good tool. It's free of charge, and it also helps you double check what you have in your tag PDF. And the other tool that's very useful is to actually use a screen reader, despite the fact that blind people are just a small portion, but it's a very strict checking tool. And I'll just quickly look at that, and then I'll let you have a coffee. So, come on. Let me just quickly grab the document. That should be this guy here. Where is it? Ah. So the PDF accessibility checker is this guy here. So it's a very simple tool. Again, it's free of charge. There will be a version 2.0 in a couple of months that is checking against the PDF UA standard, so it's a very comprehensive check by then. At the moment, it's already checking most of the necessary checks, and I could just run the check. So there's still one aspect where PDF accessibility checker and we disagree whether something is correct or not. This will be fixed over the next few weeks or months, because one requirement is that all content must be either tagged or marked as an artifact. Artifact is saying, well, this is decorative, it's just a pagination artifact, it doesn't belong to the real content. And we believe that we are doing the right thing in MadeToTag. And Samuel, the guy who's programming PDF accessibility checker, says, well, I do not agree yet. And either we will adjust our method to fix the PDF.
Is this coming from the background that you didn't put anything here, or like did you have to select the backgrounds and put them as artifacts?
No, we make this in an automatic fashion. So in MadeToTag, you just identify the articles. And we say, from a MadeToTag point of view, by implication, everything else is an artifact. We just put artifact around all the pieces. But the way we do it, there's one difference where Samuel and I still have to find out whether we have to fix something or they have to fix something. It will be fixed, and it's just very small aspect that is. And for everything else, we have green check marks, or we have warnings. Warnings will often occur for things where the software cannot be sure whether it's right or wrong. Reading order. I mean, what does software know about reading order? Can only make best guesses. And the reason that PAG is putting up a warning flag is it's saying it starts in the upper right. This is not normal. Maybe you did something wrong. So you would have to check it. It also has a preview, which is conceptually similar to the PDF Go HTML, but it's more about some details. So it's also exporting the content to HTML, opening in the browser. And the way it's presented is slightly different. I think ours is more beautiful, but there are some details that you can find out more easily here. So like for lists, this is a list of 3 items. They put markers for all the parts there that you can identify. So you have the list, one list item, the label for the thing in the list item. You have a span around the bullet here, and then you have the actual list body, the contents of the list item, and then the next one. So if you're really more technical, this gives you more information. Though if you look at this, and you use the developer tools like inspect elements, you can find more or less the same information here, because it's all also encoded in the HTML in an equivalent way, not in the identical way, because we have to transport it into HTML. But you can find out a lot of things looking at the HTML source code. But this is more specific, more down to details. And the other thing you can do is you can actually get a report which will pick up some of the overview information. So the beginning of the summary is the same as in the dialog, but it will also give you more detail. If I click on this logical reading order, it will point to a number of places on the page where there might be a problem. And if I click on this, it will actually open the PDF file using Adobe PDF Reader in the browser, and will highlight the portion of the page where the problem is. The highlighting does not work on my Parallels installation, but it does work on most other computers. So it's also a tool to find out what's going on and really do a quick check whether everything is okay and so on. And the screen reader, just to briefly show you that, is NVDA, Non-Visual Desktop Access, developed by 2 blind programmers in Australia. Free of charge, supports 43 languages, and it's pretty cool. And the PDF Association is working together with NVDA to improve the PDF support in NVDA and to make it fully PDF UA conforming. And we are raising money for this, so the goal is to get the 100,000 Swiss francs for them, because they need the money to do all the stuff. So far we have achieved around 35,000 francs, I think. Yeah, so it was a very generous... so it's being loaded. There was one generous sponsor from Switzerland, an ISP, Internet Service Provider, who donated 25,000, and Colors and Axaio donated something, and some other companies. We hope to be able to also collect the remaining 65,000. And the goal is that in a couple of months, NVDA will import all the important features in the PDF UA standard fully. So this is the welcome dialog. It's currently set up to operate in German. I hope it will pick up the language from the PDF properly anyway. I'm just opening up this in Adobe Reader. It's now reading the document title. The problem is that the default language is set to German, and the document language for the PDF is also set to German, so it's doing the wrong thing at this moment. But it should read the content just fine.
Desktop.
So when opening a document, PDF Adobe Reader has to first collect the information from the tagging structure. This can take a moment. That's why it sometimes takes a couple of seconds or even a few more seconds before the screen reader starts reading the content, because Adobe Reader needs a moment. And then
Seite 2, what is PDF/your question? Schrift Ebene 2. PDF/your makes the world a better place. Schrift Ebene 2.
So it's actually using an English language now to read the text.
Liste mit Linien anzeigen.
But the structural information is pronounced in German because the base setting of the software is German. So this is set up for a German user. It's from my last seminar, which I did in German. But it does pick up the language for the content.
Increases likelihood that content provided in the PDF format is more accessible to more people than ever before. Establishes the technical requirements necessary to encourage development of accessible PDF creation and reading software.
So that's yeah. So the blind people or people with low vision who are using screen readers, you will often find they use a voice that sounds like a roboter, like this voice. And there are so many nice voices around. So I could change the voice here, but we are running out of time, so I'll keep it shorter. You could change it to a nice voice. And today's voices from Nuance and other companies, sometimes you don't even realize anymore it's a computer voice. It's so nicely modulated, it sounds like just a nice voice. The problem is that blind people want to use the voice at a high speed to make things faster, because they don't have all the time of the world. They They are as hungry for the next piece of information as we are. So they set the voice to a higher speed. And actually, this is still relatively slow. Yeah.
Wow.
There are users who read up to 500 words per minute. It's almost 10 words per second.
Wow.
Yeah, but they would rather use computer-like voices than, or roboter-like voices than the nice voices. And the reason is that when you read the nice voices very fast, the pronunciation becomes unclear somehow. And it remains more clear if you have not necessarily exactly this voice, but voices that sound like this. Because the pronunciation is very, very sharp. Yeah, and it still works at high speed. And so at least the blind people I've encountered tell me they rather use this for high speed reading than the nice sounding voices.
And they also increase the way they listen compared to us because they don't use the eyes, so they're much better than we are.
And it's important to understand that they are, of course, some of the time they will not understand the text that has been spoken out because it was too fast, it was not clear enough. There are keyboard shortcuts in the screen reader where you can easily just go back one word or one sentence and then read it again at slower speed or even character by character. So if you have an abbreviation or an uncommon word and you just don't know the word, yeah, you go back to the previous word and then character by character. So A, B, D, and then say, okay, now I get it.
Okay.
And then you continue in the normal speed. And you have to learn the keyboard shortcuts, and even I don't know them because I don't use it very often. And it's like a fast train, yeah, and you get most of the content. Yeah? It's like cross-reading a newspaper article. Right? And you say, I didn't get this, and you go back and slightly slower speed, and then the one word which is really difficult, you go back and say character by character, and then you continue at the high speed. And then blind people, for example, they use the Braille display at the same time, so they have the fast text, and some of the text they sense from the Braille display, and like the difficult portion of the sentence or so. And then, it's really amazing how some of these guys who have really learned all the tools are operating with interacting with the system. So it can be very powerful. So, and this is a good tool. There's again, we're running out of time. There's a feature in NVDA in this screen reader where you can have a logging window. I think no, that's the other one. So anything that's happening is just printed to this window. So you could read the whole document, and what it's speaking out, it's putting in the text window. And sometimes if you do QA, if you want to find out whether it's doing the right thing, it can be easier because you can just look at the text as long as you want. You don't have to pay attention to the voice. And you can set the verbosity level, so how much information should arrive in the window. So it's sometimes an easier tool for doing QA. So. I think that concludes my presentation. I hope it was somehow interesting.